to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, it is my absolute pleasure to bring you Thom Sweeney. At 83 years young, Thom has so much to share, especially his atypical journey to interior design, his advice on salesmanship, and what he did when his first interior design business failed. But before we get to this terrific conversation, I'd like to thank our show sponsor, My Doma Studio. My Doma Studio is the place to manage, run, and grow your interior design business. Features of My Doma Studio include project management, a branded portal so that when your clients log in, it looks and feels like they are logging into your business, invoicing, purchase orders, credit card payments, and QuickBooks integration. There's so much more to be found at My Doma Studio. Start your trial today and see for yourself how much easier it could be to run your interior design firm. Go to mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business for your freebies for being a member of this podcast community. Now, let's get to Thom. You are going to love him. Hi, Thom. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Well, thank you for having me, LuAnn.
Thom, I have to say, you sound very normal, unlike what I have been warned.
Uh-oh.
That sounded very calm and very proper and very normal. But here's the thing. Our mutual friend, who I call Kathy Hinckley because I know her since we're 14 years old, but Kathy Vance, who many of you know as what is now a stout rep, which I'm so excited because for the first time in 30 years in this industry together, Kathy is my stout rep. And isn't she your stout rep now too?
Yes, she is. And I'll tell you, it is an answer to a prayer.
Right?
I mean, I love her so much, and she's so fabulous. And I can't believe that I have the luck of having her as my rep.
I know. I have to say, our rep before Kathy for Stout was Bart. And Kathy and Bart came into my showroom a couple of weeks ago, and I just looked at her and I said, I love you, lady, but you got big shoes to fill. This guy was outstanding.
He was. Yes, he was. Very nice guy.
Yes.
So what he was talking about.
Exactly. And dedicated. And of course, it's so funny because Kathy and I, like I said, we've known each other since we're 13 years old in high school. And all the years in the industry together, we've almost never had an opportunity to do anything in the industry together. And so this is fun for us. And of course, she speaks so highly of you and of your career and the relationship that the two of you have. And so I'm looking forward to, really getting a glimpse into what Kathy has been telling me about you. And I guess the first thing that I want to start with is, you mentioned to me that you had a 30-year career in advertising before you even turned your attention to interior design. And, we had an episode way back in the first, I think Erica Ward might have been on the show in episode 6 or 9. And I'm like a broken record. I say all the time, she just punched me through the eyeballs when she said, you have to take the skills that you've learned in one area of your life to the business that you run. She labeled it your transferable skills. So when I think about, 30 years in advertising, that might be a little leg up when you go out on your own in business, right?
Well, it's true. I mean, and that is so well said, because there are so many things that you take with you. You honestly, some of it you don't even realize that you are employing during your daily routine. But it's amazing how many things stick with you from all different phases of your life. And advertising was a creative venture. So there were a lot of things that were transferable easily. But yeah, it's amazing how well it qualified me for something that I never thought I would become an interior designer ever, ever.
And so, where do you want to go with this, Thom? Do you want to first tell us a little bit about the things and the lessons that you learned with advertising that you took into the design, or do we start with how the heck do you go from being an advertising exec to being an interior designer? Which one should we start with?
Yeah, I guess my background in advertising will have some, meaning when I share it with you. But again, having done it for that many years, it ended up where I was at one point in my career that I was running a Philadelphia office for a national firm out of Cleveland, and I opened the Philadelphia office for them, and I had done that for about I think 6 or 7 years, and decided it was time that I really was looking to get into something on my own. So I accepted an offer from two fellows in Cherry Hill who had an agency, small agency, just them and two people in the office to buy into the firm. And so with my well regarded $20,000, I bought into the firm, and I sent my letter of resignation to the Cleveland office on a Thursday night. And on Friday morning at 7 o'clock, my one partner called me and said, "Thom, there's been a fire. The building is burnt to the ground. We are wiped out. We don't have a paperclip."
Whoa.
So that was the beginning of my being in my own agency business. Talk about Phoenix from the ashes.
Wow.
So we worked very, 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 very hard and got things together as quickly as we could. I mean, we didn't have records. We didn't have anything.
Right.
And yeah, it was devastating. And so anyway, fast forward many years, and the agency grew, and it grew to be the largest agency in South Jersey. We had like 65 people, and we were billing 35 million a year. I mean, and the thing of it was we had 1 million developer clients. All the biggest clients in the Delaware Valley were our clients: Toll, Orleans, Scarborough, Pulte, blah blah blah, on and on and on and on. So we were sort of known as the real estate agency. And one of my clients, Bob Scarborough, would, as part of my deal of looking with him at the presentations that the interior designers would make for his model homes, would have me in, and after one particular meeting, the designers left, and he said, "So what'd you think?" And I said, "Well, I thought they were beautiful. I thought they were stunning." And I said, "But I think they missed the mark with your buyer." And he said, "Huh?" And I said, we do our whole business is based on demographics and focus groups, and we know exactly who your buyer is and how to get to them, and that's the basis for our advertising approach. And I said, "Why can't the same approach be used for your model homes? Once you get them there, why don't you know who they are, you know what they like, why don't you design for them specifically, not for the latest trends?" So he said, "That's not a bad idea." So he said, "Would you be willing to do a model for me?" And I said, "I would. I would be glad to." That's how it started. So
Wow.
I went home and said to my wife, Helen, I said, "Well, guess what? When the design, no experience, never a course in it, complete neophytes, but just going on the basis of demographics." And so anyway, we started Moorestown Interiors, and one of my friends said, "Oh, that's the best news I ever heard." She said, "Imagine that, having Helen being able to spend someone else's money while shopping," because Helen loved to shop, and there was a lot of shopping involved in model homes or in any kind of design, basically.
Yes.
But so at any rate, that's how it started, and we did the model. It was very successful, and Scarborough started giving me more models, and then it got to be so that I was the creative director of the agency, and I had that hat on part of the day. Then I had to put my model home hat on another part of the day, and it was getting to be too much. So I knew I had to make a decision, and I had done the agency thing for all those years, and I thought, you know what? Let me become an interior designer. What the heck, right? So that's how it all started. And I was bought out of the agency and left on my own, and for 3 years had a wonderful time. And then, if you may recall, the building industry tanked and the bottom fell out, and I was, stuck with only doing model homes. I had never developed any other areas like residential, general residential, or contract. So I went down with the building industry, and I had to go out of business.
Oh, okay. So I want to come back and pick a few things apart, and then we'll go there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if you can remember, but can you think of some of those first things, that first presentation that you saw, and just kind of like express for us some of the markers that were missing, like the way the original firm was designing on trend and not taking into account the actual target client and the things that you knew, that you incorporated into the next model for them that were specific to the demographic, like just so I have an actual grasp on some of those differences.
Yeah, well, the big one was the at the time Bob Scarborough was known for his historic colors. He was actually the one that really developed Cherry Hill. It was Delaware Township, and his shopping centers that he did, Barclay Farms, and all the communities that he built were all done in the same manner. They were very traditional, extremely accurate, and he even had someone develop the colors for that were unique to him that he used on the exteriors of the houses and the color combinations. So his homes had a look that people gravitated to at that time. It was a very hot element, and so the thing that I noticed in that presentation particularly was the inability to really recognize that traditional aspect of it, and things were getting a little edgier in the presentation style wise and color wise that would be off-putting to the traditionalists who were gravitating toward his communities.
Okay, so that makes
That's
perfect sense.
basically,
And it
yeah.
makes perfect sense. It's like if you were, because I can recall through the years when Vin and I would be thinking about moving or buying a house or building a house. And it's, you look at, this is back in the day when you're looking in the newspaper, not on Instagram. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
right,
Right?
exactly.
And so do you remember the Sunday real estate section?
Yep.
Anytime we were going to buy or do anything like that, it's get the Sunday real estate section out, and there's all the big pictures and the photographs and the copy for the different builders in the area, developers, like you
Correct.
said, Toll and Scarborough and all the
Yep.
others. And you're right. If Scarborough is all about the traditional blah blah blah, and I pick their tract of homes, their development out of all the others, when I come to see it, I don't want to see the edgy things that maybe is
Totally.
totally beautiful, but
Yep.
it didn't. Okay, makes total sense. All right,
Yeah, and so
and
that's the basis on which my premise was built in terms of advertising to the client, decorating to the client. So that was how it all started.
it's the old give the people what they want, right?
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I came through your front door because you're traditional. Please show
Yep.
me traditional.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't give me gray and mauve.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. That's right. We're talking before
We get the
gray,
shivers when we think of that, I
the
know.
gray and mauve era.
Oh my God.
OMG. We are totally in the early 80s now, Tom. I have to say, this is a treat for me. Usually I'm not talking to anybody on the other end of this mic that has any idea what happened in the 80s.
Oh
Most
my
of them
God,
haven't been
yes.
born yet, Tom. So this is fun.
Oh, I was ready to retire.
Oh my gosh! But let's not forget that the gray and mauve followed the avocado green
Oh
and
my
harvest
God.
gold, so we both know
We
that
had
era too.
yes, we had that refrigerator in Moorestown, I know.
So
Oh
do
my
we.
God.
Oh my goodness, so funny. I feel like every house then either had gold carpet and green like appliances, or
Yes,
green
absolutely.
carpet and gold appliances. The only
Absolutely.
thing is good is that it didn't follow with mauve refrigerators, like in the gray and mauve period.
Oh, it's a miracle. It's really interesting. I don't know if you know about the color, what's the name? Color Marketing Group. Do you know? Are you familiar with them?
I have
They're
heard of them. I believe
they're
Stacey
they're
Garcia had mentioned them way back in the beginning of the show, I feel
yeah.
like.
They were a group that got together, and they really are the ones that dictated the color palettes and changed the color palettes for every industry: the automobile industry, the home furnishings industry, the fabric. I mean, everything. And I remember being at Armstrong Cork up in Lancaster, and they had this huge board which dictated all of their changing in their flooring and their colors over the years, and it was amazing. It was all born out of this color things that were legislated from the color marketing group. I don't think many people, or all people in the industry do, but most people don't realize that their colors are being changed for obsolescence. So you want to buy the new color. That's
Right. Well,
basically
somebody
the
has to
reason.
lead us around by the nose,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Who
right.
else? Somebody's got to do it.
That's right.
Otherwise, we'd still have gray and mauve.
Yes, we would.
Because
That is
after
true.
that was, don't forget, peach and seafoam green.
Oh yes, very big. Oh my God, I still remember a condo I did in totally in that, without any exception. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, so crazy. Thank God today's interior designers have a little more creativity.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and a little more broader scope in terms of
Exactly.
their choices. Yeah.
It's so true. Okay, so the other thing I did want to go back into that part before we move on is when you did do the next model and you did now change the design to speak to what was initially attracting these buyers to begin with, was it sort of like, Bob Scarborough looking at you like, you're a genius. We just sold way more.
Well, I must say that he and I did have a wonderful relationship, and he really did agree with a lot of the things that I had come up with, but it wasn't really a genius at all. It was just a matter of bringing his outside, which he had crafted himself architecturally and color wise inside, and making it flow more seamlessly than it had before. So that was
Yes.
basically the challenge.
Well, it's true, right? It's like the outside. I can picture what you're saying. You're expecting something, you see something on the outside, it attracts you, and you walk in. And then if it's a jarring change, no matter
Yeah,
how beautifully it's designed, if it's a jarring change, it's just a disconnect. And you spend 20
correct.
minutes thinking, where am I? Did I just go
Right.
into another universe? Like time
That is
travel
exactly
here, right?
right.
Okay, I totally
Yep.
get it. So smart. I love it. Now, how about now you said, though, now you have 3 years of success doing all these model homes, but you're not thinking about other avenues for revenue. You're not, cultivating residential design. So even the point of it, what's interesting is so many designers, they're doing the model homes for the developers, and then they eventually get hired by the consumer. So I guess that was happening, but maybe not at anywhere rate of being sustainable and creating a reputation for being a residential designer, because now you're saying the market
Correct.
falls out and you're done.
That is correct. So, yes, that is exactly what happened, and I didn't really in 3 years didn't have the sense or the time really to really develop other areas such as contract and so on. So what happened was when I was going out of business, I had a warehouse sale and I had all this furniture out on the front of my office, and one architect friend drove by and said, "Oh, Thom, you should have told me about the sale. Be sure to let me know about the next one." And I said, "Well, there's not going to be a next one. This is it." And he said, "What?" I said, "I'm out of
This is the
business." And
OK
he
Corral,
said, "What?"
folks.
Yeah, exactly. He said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't know. I really did not know." And he said, "Well, let's have lunch." So we had lunch, and out of the lunch came the proposal that I open an interiors division for his architectural firm
Mm.
and become a principal in the firm. And so that got me through. And then during that period, through the different types of clients that he had, I was therefore able to get skills in and develop the other areas, the contract areas, and the residential areas that I needed to develop. And so that lasted 6 years.
Mm.
And the first three were heaven, and the last three were hell.
Oh.
And I just was very unhappy there. And so, as one of the meetings, one of the clients that was in happened to be a client of mine in the agency business, handled his PR and his advertising, and then I did his model homes for him at the time. So we knew each other very, very well for many years, and we were very good friends. And so he was sitting across the board table from me, and he said, quietly, "What's the matter with you today?" I said, "What? Nothing." And he said, "Nothing." And then we were going on with the meeting. 10 minutes later, he looked over to me and he said, "Are you okay?"
Mm.
I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, keep continuing talking." He said, "Thom and I are going out in the hall to talk about something. We'll be right back." We got out in the hall, and he said, "What is wrong with you? This is not the happy-go-lucky
Mm.
Thom Sweeney that I know. What is wrong?" I said, I am so grossly unhappy, and I'm 60 years old. I'm trapped. What am I going to do? I'm so he said, well, let's have lunch. There we go again. And so there's lunches. And so anyway, we had lunch the next week, and he said, I've come up with a proposal for you. He said, how about if you come to work for me and you oversee the marketing because of your experience in advertising, come to a marketing meeting once a week. And he said, and I'll be your partner in your advertising firm. And he said, we'll split the profits 50-50, and I'll have all the billing and all the other stuff done by the people that are already on my staff. So it'll just be you and your design, and we'll have a firm together, and we'll reap the profits. And so I thought salary and profits, that sounds like a great thing to me. So that was the beginning of a 20-year enormously happy relationship. And at the end of it all, he decided to retire. He and his brother retired to Florida. They were in their 70s, so they closed the business, gave me a year's notice. And at 80, I decided that I was going to go into my own business again.
Wow.
So 3.5 years ago, I opened Thom Sweeney Interiors, and that's the genesis of my careers. And I've been happy in the design thing almost every day of my life. It's been phenomenal. So I love it.
It's a remarkable story, I have to say. And you know what? One of the things that I want to ask you. So we're reminiscing here, and we're going
Yes.
back, 23 years to when, your business closed down. But talk a little bit about that. That is not at the time. Now 23 years later, it's hindsight. Everything happens for a reason. One door closes, another one
Right,
opens.
right.
But in the moment, that's a huge thing, right?
Devastating.
Right?
Devastating.
And
Absolutely
it's
devastating.
just like you said, like your friend's like, oh, let me know when the next one. It's like, dude, this
Right.
is it. This is the last one.
I'll tell you, it's a life-changing, life-altering situation to have failed, really. I mean, that's
Yes.
what it comes
Mm-hmm.
down to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I could never bring myself to face that very easily, because I've had people around me all of my life who have been there to never let me fail. I've led a charmed life, and people have been there for me when they've needed to be, all through my life, from my parents on through my dearest friends and business associates. So I've been lucky in that respect, but that was really a black moment for me, and I literally didn't know what I was going to do,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
so
the
that's
thing.
very scary.
And I wanted to just take a minute there because I've talked on the show before about how in the early 90s we almost lost Window Works, and we did not navigate the first recession that we faced well.
Hmm.
And it got to the point that Vin and Bill owned the business, and it got to the point that we were so far under that we were going weeks and months without paychecks. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and Billy, of course, as hard as it was, had a wife who had another job. But Vin and I were all in. It's like, wait, we're not
Yep.
getting any paychecks. We
Yeah.
got 4 kids.
Right.
Like, what the heck, man? And he ended up taking a position at Decorating Den as vice president of national franchise sales. And I continued. Then I had to then manage and run Window Works, be the managing partner and the finance person and the lead salesperson. And I had a 3-year-old and teenagers. And I'm going to tell you what, it was the hardest thing
Yeah.
I've ever done in my life. And there were times when I said, we are a minute from going out of business, and OMG, is this going to go under on my watch? Do I have to look at my husband and say,
Right.
I couldn't do it? Like, it was beyond. And so to actually just take myself and put myself in that next step of, yes, it's over, call the fat lady, she's singing and
Right.
it's done, right? And so the thing is, though, but what from experience, right, Thom? You're here 23 years past
Yep.
that. When we're in it, it's so encompassing. But when we're past it, we can see, the things we did right, like you
Yep.
said, with the things we did wrong, which was, oh, hello, selling model homes design 24/7 and not thinking about anything else. So that's a mistake, okay? But
Right.
nothing comes out of the huge failure if we don't stand up again. You just got to stand up again and get back in the game, right?
Absolutely. No, that's it, and that has to be part of your DNA. I mean, it has to. Failure cannot be an option.
Mm-hmm.
And there were too many people involved. If it were just me, I could have, just gone into a fetal position in the corner. But it was my wife and family and
Right.
my parents and all the people that love me. I just didn't want to let them down either. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really what kept me going.
It's funny because when I'm a guest on other people's podcasts, in and out of the industry, often they'll ask me, tell me about your failures. And I always have this moment of, well, are there any really true failures, right? Because there are those moments like we're talking about when it's a real thing, but
Yeah.
but the perspective, whether it takes you a week, a month, a year, or 10 or 20 years, I always find that there's so much lessons in the failure that if you didn't have that particular failure, you would have literally been prevented from some of the future successes that you've had, right? So I really
No
can
question
never
about it.
look at it as, well, that was a full on failure. It was like, that was a really hard lesson.
Yeah. Let me be past that lesson and go on to others to learn, right? I know. But that is the truth. You really, I mean, diversity certainly in your client list, at least for me, was critical. That was what I didn't have with the model homes, which I needed to develop, and which subsequently I learned to do. And I got to the point where we had a lot of contract clients that I did all kinds of work for, and one of the I had to laugh when thinking about it. Pardon me. Part of the diversity aspect hit me when I thought about at the same time at the office we were doing in a couple of years ago a homeless a high rise building for homeless veterans
Mm.
on one hand, and on the other hand we were working with a client who had built a 20,000 square foot house in Loveladies with 14 bathrooms.
Whoa.
That's diversity.
That is truly
Not the same
having
sources
two
you need
revenue
involved.
streams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so that's really critical, and that's what happens when you are diverse. You find yourself working on all kinds of wonderfully different projects at the same time.
Mm. Well, and that's the thing. It's like if you don't have that come to Jesus moment, if you just are in the failure and it's all about everything and everyone else, then you don't come through it with that lesson. You could have repeated the same thing if you hadn't looked at it closely and just acknowledged, oh, great. I did 3 years of sensational work for the property development industry, but you were asleep at the wheel over here, buddy. So if
Right.
you hadn't acknowledged that, you could have gone into the next venture, the next opportunity, and repeated the same mistake again. And so that's why it's so hard for me to actually categorize anything as a full out failure, even though I absolutely understand the concept and have been on the floor, crying my eyes out too, just like everybody else at some moment in their life, right?
Right.
Yes. And so when you think about what I also think is really interesting is that first of all, the openness to the colleagues who are like, want to have lunch? And you go
Right.
and explore and you just say, you're not like, no, yeah, but, well, that won't work, but I never did that, but, right? So you had that willingness to be open and to pivot and to think about what a new venture could look like. But I also have to say, at 60 to do it again. Look, I started this podcast at 53, which is a second behind 60, but I know I talk to the designers, Thom, at 35 and 38 and 40, and they're saying to me, I have to get going. It's never going to happen if I don't get moving. And I'm like, you have 100 years left, like you, right? It's like
Yes.
at 60, you went into the best 20 years of your career, right?
Yes, that's right. I did. It was really amazing, and how happy it made me, and how much money it made me, honestly. And so, you can never say never. You can never take that day that you close your doors and say, I'm done. You just got to start over and get back on the horse again. So that's it.
And then, here I'm remarking about at 60, you start the next thing that takes you 20. And then at 80, you do it again. You start over again. And we're still counting, right? So
Right, we're still counting.
maybe this will be another 20-year stint.
Then they'll find me slumped over in my drapery selections.
Sitting at Daddy-O's on LBI with a
Right.
little...
Drowning in a martini. Oh,
Oh my goodness. I just love it though, because it is what it is sometimes, Tom, I'm sure there are sometimes when we're younger and we see whether it's the success or the trappings or whatever it is of someone else, we just make some silly assumptions, but until we've had the experience, it's natural that everything's been fine. It's all been good. Look
Yes.
at that career. And, until you really have this opportunity to speak with somebody, you don't always know the other side of the really getting up and picking yourself up side, right?
that's right, really. And it's a thing that I hope most people don't have to face. But if they do, they have to face it with some conviction and knowing that it's all going to be okay if you put your nose to the grindstone again.
And it's also, every time you have that failure, it's an opportunity to truly gut check, right? Am I on the
Yes.
right path? Did this fail because it really isn't for me, and I really am trying to force something that is not. One of the things I think about sometimes is when you mentioned how that one last opportunity, he was like, "I'll do all the back end, you do all the front end." Sometimes designers are really in their joy, in their happy place with being truly creative and not having to do the back end. And if they're the owner of the firm, they struggle through doing it without making effective hires to take care of it. Or there's others I've noticed that just are not cut out for entrepreneurship and think there's a thing where it's like, well, of course I'm going to be my own designer because then I can do my own designs and I can have my own business. But some people we need the people who'd come in and do their job amazingly and don't care that their name's not on the door and
Right.
somebody does the back end, right?
No question about it. That's the support help is immense. I mean, in all honesty, I think every designer, if they had the choice, would only do design and not have to worry about the other stuff. And it's wonderful to have people around you, and it's important to have people around you who do that other stuff. And I was lucky to have Kathy Hinckley as a designer for me for I think maybe 13 years. I'm not good at
Wow.
numbers.
Wow.
So she and I worked together and she was my rock and helped me were able to do the things that I was loving to do every day with her help. I mean, and I have two gals now that are wonderful to me. Like they treat me like their father, and they do all the things that I don't like doing. So I'm to that point. I'm old enough that I can demand that.
Yes. And it's so funny because I'm just smiling because in one of our email exchanges, Kathy was like, "You got to stop calling them gals."
Oh gosh, sorry. Yeah. The women that work for me. Yes, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm old school.
The
Don't
colleagues
forget.
that happen to be female,
Colleagues.
who
Okay.
I love and respect.
There you go. I'll remember that. I'm
Oh,
writing
my
that
God.
down as we
I
speak.
just remember the email. She's like, "And Tom, by the way, you have to stop saying that."
Very bad. Oh my gosh.
Oh no. Anyway, so what I also know that has been a critical part of your success, which is, building on being able to look around, look in the mirror, what worked, what didn't work, go forward, be open to experiences, be open to ideas, be open to help. That's another thing I've heard throughout this,
Yes.
that you're open to help and having somebody put their hand out and you taking it and saying, okay, pick me up with
Yep.
you, and then you deliver the value tenfold. The other thing is, I know a big part of your success is based in your salesmanship skills that you learned from your dad. So this is my Java juice right here, sales and negotiation. So tell us a little bit about how you feel and know that sales skills are so helpful in running an interior design firm, or even just being that point person on a designer's team to the client.
it's critical. It's building bridges between you and the prospective client is the critical step in getting the job. And my father, he was a wonderful self-made man, wonderful salesperson, and he was the one for whom they must have coined the expression "could sell ice cubes to Eskimos" because he just had this ability to mold and people and to meld with them, I should say, instantly, and have their attention and their confidence right away. And he said to me one time, and I've never forgotten it. He said, if you go into someone's office or their place of business and you see bowling trophies on a shelf on the wall, talk bowling. So that is, to me, says it all. If you can communicate with someone who you've not met before on a basis like that, where it's something that's common, there's a commonality, develop it. I mean, if you can talk about bowling, oh, you must be a bowling, blah blah blah. And then just connect yourself with that situation that you're in, whatever it is. And again, it's the old story. If the client that you're talking to has a name that's familiar to you, ask them if they're related to the Schlumpmans from Riverton, New Jersey, or if your son-in-law was in the class of '60 at Villanova, or whatever.
Right.
Just to develop those common threads between you and this person who is hopefully going to be giving you a job and some money, and they want to have confidence that they can like you and that they're on the same level with you. And with the designing industry, it's important, I think, immediately to recognize the fact that most people think that we're stuck up and expensive and snobs and are going to be very difficult to work with and be forcing our ideas on them, whether they like them or not, because we're the experts. And it's really critical to diffuse that instantly, and that's done with that bridging the gap and the commonality aspect. Make them know that you're not an ogre and you're not better than they are, and you speak the same language, and let them leave with the idea that they're going to end up with their idea done in a polished way.
My husband is king at this. The kids, remark constantly how the world is 6 degrees separation from Vin Nigara. I mean, honestly, Thom,
True.
You're probably the same type of guy, but it's you can't go anywhere where he doesn't know somebody or knows somebody who knows somebody. Like, it's like, I got a guy, like I got a friend.
Right.
I got a guy.
I'll tell you, that has served me well over the years.
It
really has. Because again, it's amazing to people. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny.
Yeah, we've been in Paris, we've been in Hawaii, we've been in
Who's
Disney.
that with the Pope?
Right? And it's like, we'll be walking along, and all of a sudden, Vinny Nigara, is that you? Like,
is that fabulous?
Wait, we're on the Champs-Elysees. Like, what is happening right
now?
That's
so great. I mean, it really is.
And that's the 1 degree. That's the first degree, right? But then literally almost with every customer he speaks to, oh, so where are you from? Oh, you're from West Orange? Oh, well, I'm from West Orange. And did you know so and so? Oh, they live next door. Oh my God, I used to go there for cookies after school. Like, blah blah blah. Like, it's like, you just like all of us when the kids were younger, we'd be like, all right, never mind, let's all have a seat. Dad's gonna talk for an hour with
I
this
want to
guy.
have lunch with Vinny.
I know.
We have a lot in common.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's fun, though. It makes for a rich life, right?
It does. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely.
And so that is, to your point, is when you are meeting with a stranger face to face, it is to just look and be observant. And of course, designers have, most of our designers have developed a questionnaire, a Q&A that they are accessing the information to before that first consultation. And in there, Thom, right, it's like, pay attention to the information you're learning and really just give some thought, because not everybody is a natural born salesperson, and not everybody even wants to consider themselves even a salesperson, which I'm fighting tooth and nail to change in the industry, right? But the idea is that sales is creating a win-win. It's not creating something that somebody doesn't need that you convince them to have. And the win-win is in that commonality. And so when you are if you are less comfortable in the moment on your feet, the more things that you can do ahead of time to prepare and really give some thought to that Q&A that you've got the answers to. Is there something in there that could be a jumping off point for a conversation? Not that you would walk through the door, right, Thom, and say, hey, I saw in your questionnaire that you like horses. I like horses too. No, it's just that if there's a lull or there's an opportunity, that's the organic way, and you've got the information in your back pocket so that you can then, bring it in. But for some people, they need to pre-think that, right, Thom,
Yes,
and
I
be
think
prepared.
So. It comes easily to Vinny and me, maybe, but not to everybody. And you do. But I mean, just the knowledge of knowing how important a step that is gained knowledge for the designer. I mean, and focusing on that in their own way, I think.
And so here's when I think about different ways that you could reach for commonality if you don't walk in and see the bowling trophies, right? So it's like it comes from the Q&A, possibly. If the client was referred, maybe there's something in there that you can do you know the little bit about the relationship, or that's simply it? Oh, tell me about your relationship with so-and-so. They're such terrific clients of mine. It could be the neighborhood. I know there's times when I've gone to a quote unquote cold appointment. No, because at Window Works, we don't do Q&A. I do the Q&A in your face because it's not as involved a project, right? But, maybe sometimes it's just, how long have you lived on the street? Oh, it's 15 years. Oh, do you know the so-and-sos? I did their work years ago. My goodness, the kids were in middle school. They must be in college by now. Anything that, and now all of a sudden you're on a conversation about how fast time flies, not the kids and not the neighbor or anything else, right?
That's exactly right. And that's the way to do it, LuAnn.
And so it's just tips. It's like, I feel like whatever we're not comfortable with, whatever's not our wheelhouse, we can't not employ or use that in our business, but it does mean that it could be easier if we take some thought prior to being in the situation.
Yes, correct. And knowing what the ultimate goal is to bridge those gaps and develop the commonality. Yes, and in whatever way it's comfortable for you to do so. But it's an important aspect of it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, 83 and a half years old, Thom?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the next
July
20
15th.
years? July 15th.
Don't forget my birthday. I want a present.
Writing it down.
I don't know what the next birthday is going to bring, LuAnn. I still love every day of doing what I'm doing, to be very honest with you. And it's been great. And I really, I feel very sorry for accountants and people who don't have the creative juices flowing in that respect. And I understand why actors love applause. I mean, it's simply that. It's my applause is a presentation where they don't change anything.
Right.
So, you
nailed it, right? It's like
it's
home
great.
run.
Yeah.
I love it. And when you think about, your day, when I think about your day, your week, you sound like tons of energy. Is this still, just curious, is this still a 40-hour week, or have you molded your business? I guess what I'm saying is, at 83, I can't imagine it's all work and no play, but how is that mix at this stage of your life, Thom?
Interestingly enough, I mean, the only gift I give myself is I don't get in at 9 when the women of experience who work for me get in. I committed about 10:15s, and we leave at 4, and I work 5 days a week at least, and I find myself very often in there on Saturday doing some pressing things very often. So I still am at it all the time. I don't take any vacations very much, and don't take any sick days off, thank God. And so I'm at it all the time and loving every second of it, frankly. So yeah.
Vinny is 72 now as we record this, and when I tell you, since the time he's like 63, he's been saying, well, at some point I'm going to retire. We're going to have to wind this down, and you're going to have to take over the things that I'm doing here and stuff. And it's 62 and 63. Billy and I would look at him like, okay, right. And then at like 68, 69, he's like, no, seriously, we're going to have to figure this out. And so we are figuring it out, but we literally just said in our partner meeting the other night, we were chit-chatting, the three of us, and strategizing, and okay, because we are really legitimately working on succession planning, just because to be prudent and to be smart about it, because somebody has to know how to do the things that he knows how to do that we've not learned how to do, right? So that's mostly our goal now, is to just somebody know everything that he does, and have the time and ability and space for him to teach it to us, in a measured way, in a meaningful way, not like, okay, see you, bye, right? And so, but at one point during the conversation, I literally said the words, I know we keep saying 2 to 3 years. I'm convinced it's 10 to 15, but let's just keep pretending it's 2 to 3. So, and then when I have a conversation with you at 83 and there's no end in sight, it's like, yep, it's 10 to 15.
I think it is. If you really love what you do. And I mean, don't you feel sorry for those poor stiffs who are home, retired with nothing to do but watch TV or something?
Can't imagine
oh my gosh.
I cannot imagine
that's death. It's just terrible.
I cannot.
I can't either.
No.
So that's why I'm going to keep on keeping on.
That's it. Vin and I, whenever it's at its most stressful, and I have to say, these last 8-9 months of COVID, from a business perspective and a personal perspective, have been absolutely, beyond. And no matter how hard it's gotten, at some point, one of us will look at each other and go, we've chose this, that we would not have it any other way. So get up and get back at it.
Exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. That's what you got to do.
Yep. So, but anyway, well, Thom, I have to say, Kathy, thank you, sweetie. I love you. I love you for referring Thom to me. And Thom, new BFF. I just have to say, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. You were very courageous having me on, because I didn't think you knew what you were getting.
Well, I was kind of prepared, but I can dance, so I'm good.
You are good, by the way.
You have a great day, Thom. Thanks.
Thanks so much, LuAnn. It was great talking with you. I loved it.
I just love Thom, didn't you? So real and so open and willing to share his ups and downs for the benefit of us, his fellow business owners. Thom didn't shy away from telling us about the hard stuff, the stuff that we tend to shove under the carpet, right? Especially when we're talking on a big platform. Those gut-wrenching failures that we're so desperate to keep hidden. We're afraid sometimes that the failures will define us in a bad way. But the truth is, when you learn from your big failures, I believe that they do define us, but in a good way. And I think Thom would agree with me on this too. Failure, especially the really big ones, the ones that make you want to crumble, these failures can be a gift. Yes, in the moment, they feel like anything but a gift, but we can turn the tables in our favor by doing a few things. First, you have to do what I always call the autopsy. You have to take the autopsy of the projects, but especially take the autopsy of the failures, okay? Individual failures, not just project failures, right? We need to put our ego aside, and we need to figure out where we went wrong. Notice I said we. This is key. Why? Because you cannot change other people. You cannot control other people, only yourself. So we must review and find the thing that we personally could have done differently to create a different outcome. We have to take ownership of the failure so that we can learn the lesson from it. The second thing is to be open to new ideas and to help. We have to look outside the box. We have to think beyond what has always been and what might have always been comfortable. Sometimes you need to stretch your mind so you can learn from the failure. And the third thing is to think long term and purposely reframe how you think about the failure, right? When you break it down, when you find the lesson, when you make the necessary changes, then you can process it and you can get past it. Going on to new successes and I guess what? Yes, new failures, right? But not the same failures, not the same mistakes. And this is the secret sauce, right? So often when we look at successful people, we just see the wins, the projects that went according to plan, and the years when the business flourished. We don't see the hard times, the shock and heartache horror of those failures and the sometimes slow and painful journey back up. Thom was fortunate to have such good people in his life, those who knew his skill and his talent and encouraged him to get up again. Isn't it so funny that something as simple as let's do lunch can change the entire trajectory of your entire life, right? You can't have one without the other. You have to have your colleagues and friends who lend a hand, but you also have to be willing to swallow your pride and let someone know that you're struggling and be open to doing lunch, right? Open to pivoting and open to grabbing the opportunities that come your way. Have you had the opportunity to work with Kirsch yet? At WindowWorks, we've been doing business with Kirsch from the very beginning. They are one of our favorite go-to resources for drapery hardware, brackets, poles, finials, rings, everything. This is the good stuff, built to last. Visit their catalog and find a distributor by going to kirsch.com, KIRSCH.com. Now, didn't you just love the advice that Thom's dad gave him about sales? If you see bowling trophies, talk bowling, right? It pretty much wraps it up right there. Find common ground and connect on a personal level, okay? Something that has nothing to do with the product or the service that you're selling. Now, if this doesn't come naturally for you, you're not off the hook on this. You just need to prepare a little bit, and you need to do your homework and to find that little element that you have common with your prospective client, right? Pay attention to those answers in your questionnaire, right? When you're talking with the client, chat about the person who referred you. Simple things like talking about the neighborhood that your client lives in and other clients that you've served there. They can make that connection and help you and your client get started off in a more meaningful way. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to my friend Kathy for sharing Thom with me and you. Kathy told me for weeks and months I would love Thom and this would be a great show. And you know what, Kathy? You were 110% right. So thank you so much, Kath. And then also I want to give a shout out to Stacy Garcia, who introduced us to color and design forecasting all the way back on episode 21. And hint, hint, Stacy Garcia is in my recording calendar this month. So sometime next month, you are going to be able to catch up with this dynamite lady. I, for one, am looking forward to that. So if you haven't listened to episode 21 yet, go back and learn her backstory. You'll hear how she started out in her company, and then you'll be ready for getting caught up onto where she is now. Now, the other thing that's on my calendar is Lu University. We have a full lineup of classes covering so many of the topics and challenges you have in running your creative businesses. These classes are valuable for designers, window treatment pros, photographers, architects, landscape architects, all of you. Check out the entire curriculum at LuAnnUniversity.com. All right, thanks so much for joining me. Thank you for your reviews, your messages, and all the comments and fun on Instagram and Facebook. I love every bit of it, and I love that we keep the conversation going. Have a great day. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnn Nigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.